welcome to the Narrowing Path, walking the spiritual walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein. Thank you for joining me today for June 7th reading of James Allen's Daily Meditations. I'm very excited to read today's for personal, selfish reasons and just general excitement. Disclaimer about me: today's my birthday, June 7th, and for my birthday, I got given a new mic to do this show with, and I'm very, very excited to use it. So if you hear a quality difference, which I believe you will, that's why I'm using a much more professional mic, and we're going to give it a test run, kind of see how it is. So if there's some need to be some tweaks along the way, please bear with me. But I think it's overall going to be a much more positive experience. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and do June 7th's reading from James Allen's Daily Meditations. This will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning this will be the first time I hear it or read it right here on this podcast with you. So you'll get my genuine response, reactions, and observations about the reading. So here we go. June 7th, Daily Meditation. Man is the all-important factor. A man imagines he could do great things if he were not hampered by circumstances, by want of money, want of time, want of influence, and want of freedom from family ties. In reality, the man is not hindered by these things at all. He, in his mind, ascribes to them a power which they do not possess, and he submits not to them, but to his opinions about them. That is, to a weak element in his nature. The real want that hampers him is the want of the right attitude of mind. When he regards his circumstances as spurs to his resources, when he sees that his so-called drawbacks are the very steps up which he is to mount successfully to his achievement, then his necessity gives birth to invention, and the hindrances are transformed into aids. He who complains of his circumstances has not yet become a man. What an absolutely perfect reading to be done on my birthday here. It's talking about what we've talked about the last few days, right? Perspective is everything, and accepting responsibility for your current lot in life, accepting responsibility for being exactly where you are, and instead looking at yourself as being the victim of life, looking at life as being open and available to you. How can you be a part of this life? How can you actually engage in the world in a way that's much more helpful, much more beneficial, right? That's what we're talking about here. And I think that's just so important to see. And our perspective makes so much of a difference. And, that last line, it closed with, "He who complains of his circumstances has not yet become a man." That responsibility is what is a sign of maturity, I found. And I didn't have any for the first 29 years of my life, and honestly into my sobriety for the last 6 years. I didn't have it up until recently. Probably the second half. The first 3 years of my sobriety was me learning how to accept responsibility and a practice of acceptance of my circumstances. But when I got there, my world opened up, and there was so much more possibility to me. And so I love this reading. I absolutely love this reading. And the first line it opens with, let's get started here. The man is the all-important factor, right? Because the external circumstances will remain the same. It's me, it's myself, it's my mind, it's my perspective that can change, right? So I am the key factor in my own experience, which it sounds like something that should be obvious. Again, like there's a lot of things that we talk about here that seem like they should be obvious or self-evident, and to many maybe they are, maybe only to a few. But I can tell you, to me, it was not. I thought every other circumstance was the all-important factors. I thought my um, addiction was the all-important factor. I thought my living situation was the all-important factor. No, I am the all important factor. Man is the all important factor in any situation. And when I came to understand and realize that, I was able to accept responsibility and change. That's what they mean by taking your power back. That's what they mean by your power is always in your own hands, but you've given it away. It talks about that in this reading. So let's go into the reading. A man imagines he could do great things if he were not hampered by circumstances, by the want of money, want of time, want of influence, and want of freedom from family ties. I relate to all that because I blamed all of those things. If I had more money, I'd be okay. If I had more time, I would be okay. If I had more power, I would be okay. If I didn't have so many people holding me back, I would be okay. Right? But that's not the real thing. I was blaming everything else except for the one thing that could take responsibility and change it, which was myself. In the next line here, in reality, the man is not hindered by these things at all. As much as we might like to argue, as much as we might like to um, disagree with that statement, it's the truth. In reality, the man is not hindered by these things at all. The next sentence, he in his mind ascribes to them a power which they do not possess, and he submits not to them but to his opinions about them. That is too a weak element in his nature. That's that's the kicker. That's the understanding that changes everything right there, right? Because something is just a thing in the reality of everything, right? A individual is just an individual until we assign an opinion to that individual for ourselves. He in his mind ascribes to them a power which they do not possess. Right? I give them power over my attitude. I give them power over my um, time. I give them power over my happiness. No, I give them. I'm subjecting myself to an opinion I've formed of them, which is completely different. Actually, that's a completely different circumstance than what's actually going on, and I have to remember that the things that have power in my life only have it because I've given it to it. I've said I will be happy if this occurs. I will be more content if this occurs, right? I will be able to relax when this occurs. That's giving away all of your power. You can be that's making well that's I want to say this first, that's making you dependent on other things. First of all, for your personal condition, your emotional state, and your mental stability. So you're giving away all of that to external things that can change at the drop of a hat. Everything materially is temporary. So that is a weak element in our nature. That's our own opinion of them. That is the power we have ascribed to them. He goes on in the reading to to say the real want that hampers him is the want of the right attitude of mind. So we find ourselves blaming these external circumstance, people, money, time, influence, freedom, whatever it is. When we find ourselves blaming those circumstances, what we actually are desiring is a different frame of mind. Well, maybe that's not what we're desiring, but the solution to that, just the solution to that um, complaint, the solution to that blame you're assigning is actually a shift in your own personal mindset, which is a pretty amazing thing to think about on the flip side of everything. Again, it's taking our power back. He goes on here to say, when he regards his circumstances as spurs to his resources, when he sees that his so called drawbacks are the very steps of his achievement, then his necessity gives birth to invention. And the hindrances are transformed into aids. Now, that's a powerful thing, right? It's telling us we can actually change how these things play a role in our lives. We're changing it from drawbacks to the steps we mount to our achievement. It changes to hindrances to aids, right? It gives us the inspiration to create, to build instead of feel stuck. How powerful is that? And it's a simple change of mindset. So when he regards his circumstances as spurs to his resources, when he sees that his so-called drawbacks are the very steps up which he is to mount successfully to his achievement, then his necessity gives birth to invention. That's awesome. So when you stop looking at those things as problems, looking at them as pieces, looking at them as positive aspects of your life, how can you incorporate those things to build with you? How can you incorporate those things to help you create something new, create something different? That solution-oriented mindset, as some might call it, opposed to a problem-oriented mindset, which I think is a very good description of the different mindsets, is what we talk about here, right? That's the key to a lot of this. Instead of looking for the problems, look for the components to your solutions. And looking around and changing everything that you blame to something you can build with is so important. Just so incredibly important. And yeah, the last part, I'll read it again. And the hindrances are transformed into aids. These are things that help us, we can build with, we can create with. These are things that we should not be looking at as damning, as confining, or anything else like that. They are things to help us grow, things that help us achieve our goals rather than hold us back. And the last line here, I've already commented on it a little bit. He who complains of his circumstances has not yet become a man. When you, there's a lot of questions about that, but when you accept full responsibility for your circumstances and understand it's up to you to change them, that's that's a sign of becoming a man. That I think is the hallmark of maturity. It's when you accept responsibility for what's going on. And that was something I ran from for a long time, to be fair. So it's a belief that I hold dear to me. So um, that's it. This has been quite an experience with the new mic. I hope it gives us or it gave this a little bit more clarity, a little bit more consistency as we go forward. I really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. This reading today it couldn't be more appropriate for me personally, and just being part of my story. The concepts it's talking about being part of my story and my direct experience, and something I need to remember. So, thank you all for joining me today. I look forward till tomorrow's, and until next time, thanks.